Why am I making so many videos about young earth creationists lately? I suppose it's just the natural evolution of my channel. See what I did there? Just roll the intro.
Go nuts on my nuts.
The canine kind, the coyote, and the domestic dog, and there's the feline kind, which is the cats, the tiger and the kitten, and you've got humankind. So Darwin said there'd be a change of kinds.
No, he didn't. Not even once. Ever. Or at least not anywhere that I can find.
Could you give me an example of Darwinian evolution, not adaptation or speciation, but a change of kinds?
But what exactly do young earth creationists mean when they refer to kinds? And all the interviewer has done here is ask the professor a question and then immediately disqualify all the answers that would allow him to answer accurately. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, I don't actually have a young earth creationist to hand to ask this question. So I've referred to everybody's favourite young earth creationist. No, not fake Dr. Kent Hovind, but Ken Ham, and Answers in Genesis, to see if they offer any explanation as to what they mean by kind. And as luck would have it, they do. As an example, dogs can easily breed with one another, whether wolves, dingoes, coyotes, or domestic dogs. When dogs breed together, you get dogs. So there is a dog kind. It works the same way with chickens. There are several breeds of chickens, but chickens breed with each other and you still get chickens. So there is a chicken kind. Well, that was going so well, until he mentioned chicken kind. Chicken kind. A chicken, not birds?
We have thousands of examples.
Can you give me one?
I can give you thousands.
Just one.
I can give you one. Not like that, don't be childish. My assy, a weasel-like animal that lived around 40 million years ago. They existed for 28 million years, and they are thought to have evolved into the modern carnivorous mammals that we have today, from the order of Carnivora. What's the order of Carnivora? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's cats, dogs, skunks, mongoose, bears. But it's almost as if, over millions of years, the Maiaci evolved into various other species which were more suited to their environment. Imagine that. Oh, that's right, we don't have to imagine it, do we? Because the fossil record and all the evidence shows us that that is what happened.
For instance, I would say, look at Lenski's experiments with bacteria then.
So what did the bacteria become?
The bacteria are still bacteria, of course.
So that's not Darwinian evolution. That's not a change of kinds, is it?
It is a change. It is a change in the genetic makeup of the bacteria, which is
still bacteria. So what did the bacteria become?
A new kind of bacterium.
So it's still bacteria. There's no change of kinds.
Now, whenever anybody tries to debate a young earth creationist on the topic of evolution, they just keep on and on and on about kind. Show me a cat changing into a dog. Show me a bird changing into a fish. But that just shows how poor an understanding they have of the way evolution works. These changes are there. It's just that they take millions of years to happen.
To summarize, the observable evidence that you give me for Darwinian evolution is bacteria becoming bacteria.
No, it is bacteria acquiring new metabolic capabilities.
You said before that there is lots of evidence for evolution. I just want one observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, just one.
See what I mean? Why does it have to be observable? You believe in God, don't you?
But I gave you some. You don't want.
Not some, I want one.
Wait, you don't want that.
I want one. Yes, I do. I'm pleading with people.
You asked me to tell you. You asked me to tell you when I've watched one species evolve into another. Isn't that right?
No, one kind into another.
Now, in order for us to try and gain a little bit of clarity as to what they mean by kind, I'm going to refer back to Answers in Genesis. Again. So according to young earth creationists, what is a kind? Often people are confused into thinking that a species is a kind, but this isn't necessarily so. A species is a man-made term used in the modern classification system. But aren't all terms man-made? Because, light bulb moment, isn't language also evidence of evolution? Or did God create that as well?
When you're talking about kinds or change in families, you're actually talking about macroevolution. You're talking about changes on the level that separate, say, cats from dogs.
So could you give me any examples of Darwinian evolution?
Well, when you say examples of that, then you have to sort of look at over a longer time frame.
And therein lies the problem, because young Earth creationists believe that the Earth is only a few thousand years old. But it gets worse after this break.
Go nuts on my nuts.
Right.
When you say change of kinds, you mean the evolution of one species from another or to another? Yes, we have that in action actually in the Galapagos.
Could you give me one instance?
So Professor Stanford started off his sentence then by saying, do you mean the evolution of one species into another? He was asking him, is that what he means by kind? And he didn't say no, so is that now how we are meant to take what they mean by the word kind? They just use it instead of species? Because if that is what they mean, then they've got so many problems.
Yes, we have an example from a group of birds called Darwin's finches.
What did the finches become?
They become genetically new and anatomically new, recognizably different species.
So they're still finches?
Well, of course, they're still finches, yes.
They're not a change of, there's no change of kind.
Now, until we can get young Earth creationists to actually admit that when they say kind, they actually mean species, this whole exercise is very much like trying to pee into the wind. Because according to Answers in Genesis, when young Earth creationists use the word kind, they are referring to species, but the old version of the definition of species, the biblical version, where it was said they're all feces. Oh, there's so much shit going on in this video, it's making me say the words for it. Right, let's try that again. So when young Earth creationists use the word kind in place of the word species, it's because they are using the biblical, the old-fashioned definition of the word species. And the reason they do that is because in years gone by, in biblical terms, it was considered that feces again. This isn't going very well. I may just move on to the next topic. One more try. It was considered that species were fixed, which is probably why they don't like the word species and they choose to use the word kind instead, because then they can refer it back to the biblical definition and not the actual definition, which does allow for evolution.
Darwin spoke of a change of kind. Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where there's a change of kind?
Change of kind. Change of kind. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little longer.
Now, what I find funny about this whole video is that he keeps asking for them to give him an example of a change of kind, as he calls it, but it basically just means species. And even though they've done that, he just goes back and says, but that's not a change of kind. It's still bacteria. It's still a bird, for example. But there are things that you can look at for yourself to see that evolution is real. You just have to read the evidence and have the capability to understand and accept it.
You give me anything that I can see, observe, and test, which is a scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds.
So he's moved on to harassing students now instead of harassing the professors. But it still boils down to the same thing. He's asking for a question that doesn't have an answer that he's going to accept. Evolution happens over millions of years, not before our very eyes. Let's look at the common ancestor of cats and dogs. We can see from the fossil record that modern cats and dogs evolved from one common ancestor, and they've evolved in very different ways. Like, for example, cats are lone hunters. The bigger cats, like lions and tigers, they've got big, powerful paws, and they will take prey down with a swipe of their paw, and then they will usually bite around the neck and disable it that way. And the reason dogs haven't evolved into as big a creature as some of the bigger cats is because dogs actually hunt in packs. They use teamwork and they will chase their prey until it collapses from exhaustion. So for dogs, having a bigger body, for example the size of a lion or tiger, would be a disadvantage, which is why dogs didn't evolve down that path. So from one common ancestor, modern cats and dogs diverged into fairly forms, which are things like cats, hyenas, mongooses, and caniforms, a more diverse group that includes raccoons, walruses, as well as dogs. Bears are also caniforms, and they are more closely related to dogs than cats are, so you could argue that big dogs do exist, and the equivalent of the tiger in the dog world would be a grizzly bear. And yet this idiot of an interviewer, whoever he may be, chooses to go around university campuses asking highly educated professors and people that are majoring in things like geology, biology and physics a question which he knows they cannot answer, so he is essentially just setting them up to fail, all because it fits in with his worldview.
So Darwinian evolution is not observable, it's not scientific.
I guess so.
So it's unscientific, you can't prove it.
It's scientific, actually. You could prove it. It could be proven, just...
Do it for me.
That's hard. That's just too broad of a...
It's unobservable, that's why you need millions of years.
Yes, exactly.
So he does understand what evolution is then. He just said it himself. It's unobservable because it takes millions of years. Now, if we look at that word, unobservable, and relate it to young Earth creationists, how is it that they will not accept evolution as being fact because they can't see it with their own eyes, and yet they are more than happy to believe in God? So until young Earth creationists can provide evidence of God actually existing physically, observably, and repeatedly, I suggest that they shut the well, I was only going to say shut the front door. How rude. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to give the video a like, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and bye-bye.
Alright, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe. By order of the Creaky Blind.